I think he said it's fine. I think we're good. Okay. Let's just dive in. Okay, so we had a schedule. It's not really a schedule. We'll just say it's a um, we'll just say it's an outline of things that we could talk about today.
I would agree with that. It's kind of
yeah. So I guess I'll just kick us off, and then we can just jump into the intros. So this YouTube live event was an idea that kind of popped up in the community about a week ago, I think, or maybe a little bit longer than a week ago. Time blurs together. And so we said, okay, we'll throw up a poll. We'll see if there's interest. And we had a couple votes for a best time. And so, and here we are. I think hopefully this is the first of many events, and we can increase our technical prowess as we progress through these, including getting OBS hooked up and other goodies. John, well, let me also just say that this video, this recording, this live event is started within the UOR Foundation. The UOR Foundation is Universal Object Reference. It's a framework of first principles ideas that our community is incubating, and we have a very focused vision for how to apply this in an information system that we're pursuing, and then we have a larger interest of other extended applications of these frameworks. John, if you could just kick us off with an intro, and then I'll follow on, and then we can just jump in.
Okay. My name is John Haines. I am a proud United States Marine, and then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I found myself doing client-side support and ended up working at Headquarters Marine Corps. Short version of the story, I just retired. I was one of those early retirement feds that went on this year. So I've spent the last 15, 20 years building and managing enterprise business systems across DoD and, interlacing it and having those foundational conversations. But now that I'm retired, I only have to think about one thing, right? So I'm currently a project manager over at Avum, excellent company, by the way. We do a lot of still supporting DHA, developing some systems, and they do some Navy support and some other work. Wonderful company. But now that I have that one thing to think about, I am now opened up to my personal endeavors, and I found myself on this symbolic compute journey. I don't know why, but that's kind of where I'm at, and that's kind of what I do currently.
Very cool. And we're going to jump into the symbolics in a little bit. But before we do, I'll just give a short intro for myself. Wow, I'm sorry. Just hearing your background, it's like you have a lot of. I mean, you said 20 years of doing
enterprise
systems. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've been a easy way to put it. I'm like the sticky bits in the middle because the machinations don't all flow wonderfully. So I do a lot of the change management and functional advocacy. So wherever you step into the rooms where everybody's smiling at you because they want your budget and your FTEs and your resources, right? So you have to gladiator put it out. But the advocacy and the long change management vision is what I actually matured to at the end of my career. I used to storm and norm early on, but I found out cohesiveness goes a lot better with change management. So yeah, enterprise services, you could normalize it too.
Very cool. Okay. Well, I think I'll get into my background as kind of response to what you said. I think that I see a parallel between our personas, and it's interesting because we've had a couple of these conversations together. This is the first one that's recorded, but we're interested in these same concepts, but it seems like we came to these conclusions through systems. formal or informal systems thinking. So I got my start actually in our lovely military as well. I was on the Navy side of things, and I spent a lot of time in the military deploying to austere environments and having satellite communications as my lifeline or my internet tether, and other communications mechanisms too. But you develop an appreciation for a different perspective of the internet. And so I actually was hired by Red Hat shortly after I separated from the military. I was in for 11 years, and going into Red Hat and finding an appreciation. I didn't really understand how I even got the job. I mean, in retrospect, I think it makes sense, because you have somebody who's focused on regulated systems, which is an easy win for when you're talking about government compliance. But also, I just had a passion for like Kubernetes and state machines and declarative systems and things like that. And so while we were at Red Hat, we kind of latched onto this idea of the universal object reference. And it was like, what does it look like where the metadata of all artifacts on the internet is known, right? Where there's no dark corners of the internet that lack definition. There's no more heuristics. And they let us actually pursue that for quite a while. I think before they got sick of it. So it's pretty radical, and I think fundamental idea for a corporation like that to incubate. So I think we're fortunate that they did as long as they did. But I think I've been doing this for going on 3 years now. I think just under the umbrella of the UOR Foundation, which is our nonprofit that's registered here in Colorado. Does that count as an intro? Did we do it?
I'd say that's an excellent first stab. I think we're in the room.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I think like as you've introduced yourself to me initially, you stressed the systems thinking, and I guess I never caught on that that's what I was doing too, fundamentally leading up to this. So
Yeah, because we've had these conversations, and for me, I know we have a little bit of a structure, but I wanted to lay a little foundational groundwork for me. I've had a recent change in the way I'm seeing systems and how systems are managed because of my experience doing enterprise level things. Because when you do an enterprise level anything, you have to have a level of rigor down to every nominal standard. Like it has to work exactly right for everybody every time. So top to bottom, you're thinking full phase, everything at one time. Nothing is in a vacuum, which is where I developed this idea of what I perceived early on as kind of like a blind spot. And later I realized it was just opening up of my idea of an observer. And what an observer's status and state is and what its purpose is, especially in systems and workflows. Because we all know what an observer is notionally, logically. But in practice, in like a workflow, an observer is not just a singular state. An observer, it is it's the coordinate system, the intent, it's the wherewithal to even do it. It's the machination of it. It's almost like a fractalized experience, right? An observer state. It's not a singular thing. It's an action, and it's something you can persist across various levels, and you can farm it all the way up. And so when I changed my perspective to that, I got freed up in the way I can think of systems and symbolics. And I just wanted to baseline that. So when I start talking sometimes about observers and observer states and what I think about data and data forms, it has to do with my new understanding of observers as coordinate systems.
Right. I know as we're getting into this, what you're talking about, I think we'll dig into that a little bit more, and you know why maybe that gets into why the things we're talking about are considered so radical in some circles. You know, and I don't know where this puts us with the outline or the agenda, but you know, what the way that I've framed, I think what you're talking about as far as, hold on here, let me see something here. Sorry about that. So the way that I've framed, oh no, sorry about this. I'm just going to make sure that this happens so that we don't have any more interruptions. I'm going to put a focus. Okay. The way that I've viewed this as an actual alignment problem. So like our implementation of information systems is devoid of this understanding or this competency at expressing this observer. And so our entire internet is actually physically misaligned with its twin in my understanding of this.
Okay. I like that.
Okay, so that's kind of like what you're talking about when you're talking about the observer is the context that the internet or that I'm sorry, I see everything through the lens of the internet, so I apologize early in this conversation.
Okay, so I'd been leading up to this idea for a while, but the grand epiphany came to me in a mental exercise. I love mental exercises, kind of like the Einstein thing. It just works for me. And remind me to come back to a story about mental exercise and metaphor. So my epiphany came from when you go to Disney and you go, what is that, the haunted house or whatever, and you have that inverted face. And everywhere you look, that inverted face is looking at you. It looks 3D, but it's really a representative coordinate system for your observation, right? Now, that 3D observational state, if you took it as a 0 point and you projected it out to the point at which it diffuses, right? You reach a natural pseudo Casimir effect, right? If you just extrapolate it out. So you get an observational basis where you can't see no more based on whatever your strata or substrate is for measuring. So you'll end up with a boundary, a phase boundary of some sort, wherever you're at, inverted out from that 0 space, right? That's a coordinate system. Now, whoever you're entangling with to observe with, their boundary and their coordinate system has to overlap within that boundary and coordinate system. Otherwise, that interaction, that entanglement would never occur. All right, so then you have these two overlapping Casimir field boundaries that makes, in my mind, this logical space in between that I look at as the action part of observation, because that is the shared entangled space. Am I making sense?
I think you're making sense in my understanding of what you're saying. I think that something that's not clear to me in how you're presenting it is in this idea that there's two objects and they have to be interacting, or like what does this mean if you're sitting in a room by yourself versus if you're interacting with your friend?
Okay. Two entangled observer states. They have to coordinate and overlap. They're coordinate systems, right? This is the peak maximum projection from this coordinate system.
And that's the coherence.
This is the entangled space of coherence. And in the middle, you get this pocket. And that's all I'm saying, breaking it down to binary first principles. of what an observer state is, what its maximum capability is, its probability matrix, and only on the overlap of the two measured states, the minimum principal for, a measured observer, that's what I'm predicating all of it off of. And once I went to that, then my understanding of what an observation was drastically changed what I wanted out of the system and what I thought the system could do, which really took me on this crazy path.
Okay, so this is why I don't know if it's helpful or if it's a hindrance in these conversations. I think that this for me it helps to ground these conversations in like the internet or in my interactions with like my computer, because it's interesting as we think of digital systems, the notion of identity, and then the context that that identity is, and then what observation is within that digital substrate. Because I think that it gives us a very nice analog as we're talking about sitting in a room in your house, or these interactions that we have with people in a same room or remotely like we are here.
Okay, so I had I captured something earlier. So you spoke on mythos, and I have this big thing about mythos because I initiated all this. I ended up here talking to you. My personal hobbies and whatever is I'm a big science guy, otherwise I wouldn't even be here. But I went through the esoteric texts. I went through and studied all the old stuff and what all the other misunderstood misanthropes through the eons, what they documented, what they persisted, what they couldn't let go. Now some of it was psychosis, and some of it, wherever. We all have our own journeys, but I found through the legitimate agnostic study with esoteric text, my interpretation of these things, like all the D stuff, all the Nostradamus stuff, I think they were running ancient VM machines. They're basically doing transforms. They all had various methods of doing transforms, and they hit them, in my point of view, because they were the educated class, and they were all educated by the same peoples, right? They all went to the same schools and did the same type of studies, and so I think there's personally, in my own opinion, just to totally sidetrack, I think there's a whole hidden thing in these old texts. Nobody bothers to go and look at them in today's 15-second attention society. You could tell them things, nobody even cares anymore, right? Doesn't even matter. We've reached saturation because we can't map our coordinate systems. In my opinion, we can't map to what the internet's offering. It's like, we see 13.8 billion years based on our light-based observation, but that's just what we see. That's not the edge of the universe. That's just the edge of what we see.
6%. I think from my studies into what you're talking about, it's like we see 6% of everything.
It's just the observational hypersphere that we can embody using our current techniques.
I think I'm looking at the chat, and I see I saw a shout out to your coordinate system, and then I saw and your mental exercise, but I also see Mark talking about
Thrash me, what do you got?
No, he's talking about the 7 generators, and they keep like popping up in these models, and it's like,
yeah,
like these are the things that generate primitives, right? They're
yes.
like they're primordial. Would that be the word for them?
I'll go with that. That's I'm with that. So for me, it's more of a tried to think about how to talk about this. So you can have, you always got the blind mice and the elephant, right? Right. Everybody's wandering around trying to figure out what's true based on where they're at. It goes back to the coordinate system, right? Based on what you're actually interacting, the measurement. So for me, it's always a binary, but everybody's being honest. Everybody's being true, which is why when I bump into somebody and they're talking about this, or I don't take anything for granted, because we all woke up faking it. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. And we're all picked on in school if you're lucky enough to go to school, right? That's pretty much the only things that are true. But yeah, so I think there's a representative truth everywhere. And I think for some reason, humans, we're obviously, we're placated somehow. For some reason, we're comfortable with the fact that what we call the standard model, right? I heard this said by somebody like 15 years ago. I don't know who it was. It wasn't me. But he said it was misnamed. The standard model should be named the most magical freaking thing ever to be imagined ever that we managed to write down ever. It's, standard model. It's fabulous what it is, because when I think about the standard model, and what really initiated me is I really got into it, and I started to understand what a superposition really is. It's kind of a mental exercise, and I started to understand what these things were, which led me to start to think about space and anything that you want to do with quantum, and anything that we're measuring in physical space is merely a medium. The data constructs are what actually manifests and transform. The data constructs are what walk around between one form and the other. And they're agnostic, is what I'm coming to find out and think about from my personal experience. The data constructs, if the water swirls to the right, then the water just swirls to the right. And if you jump in the water, you're going to swirl to the right. Now, I think we're kind of like fish. We don't see the medium that we walk into. I think the ancient ideas of an aether are valid, but not in the way that they were thinking. And my idea of a mythos kind of a thing. And it was kind of like a mental exercise, a social construct. And this is what I wanted to get back to, was that this idea is a mythos is a variable layer that modulates Casimir-like vacuum forces with the operator stacked via direct symbolic interpretation, right? So society, controls, fraternities, police officers, the lines at IKEA, the little arrows and all that, these are control models that are put in to control variables and direct field activities. Because we are merely a logic construct, mainly. Anybody who studies the standard model and any of the quantum stuff already accepts the fact that there's no physical form.
All right. Let me see if I got the breakdown. Let me see if I got the breakdown here, okay? So you're a standards guy, you're a systems guy, maybe. Let me start with the systems guy. You're a systems guy doing enterprise integrations, right? That's your perspective, okay?
Yeah.
You're coming at this entire enterprise integration, I'm assuming, through a deep appreciation for standards. So you've touched on this special standard that we know of called the standard model of, and then you can fill in the blanks as to whether you're in physics or mathematics or whatever we're talking about. Yes. So then you went into this notion of symbolic representation. And so I'm thinking to myself, this is a person who's been deeply contemplating this notion of being able to represent arbitrary standards through a single representation.
Whole stacks of them. Anything I want. Magical world of anything I want. Yep.
And so, okay. So I think that, it's interesting as we're going through these, and I think from the systems perspective too, it's easy for us when we're talking about standards to go into schema, start going into modeling, start going into ontology, right?
Which is great, because I never have it go outside of the symbolic construct. I do all my compute inside the symbolic construct. The only thing that touches token and silicon is actually if I need a touch point, because everything else is a drift measure, right? The variance, a delta capture, whatever you want to call it, honestly, whatever medium you're doing.
Now, let me ask you this question, because I think this is interesting. We'll let the other people decide, but this notion of canonical forms, symbolic compression, these ideas, right? So I've been working with a lot of people who are doing first principle systems who are doing the symbolic compression like we're talking about.
Right.
Obviously, I've been working on the Atlas model and what we more broadly referred to as like the computational cosmos. In that model, the goal has been to achieve perfect canonicalization.
Okay.
Now, do you believe that you can have an effective first principles model without fully understanding the generation of these primitives and the fundamental canonicalization of data?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is why I think my idea of mythos and an engineering concept, it would be a framework, right? It's just if this, then that, right? A control construct. And mythos, society, fraternities, all these human-based constructs, all of it is just that. Like I lost my button.
Oh, it's the math of subjectivity,
coherence.
right?
So coherence, yes. So you can absolutely have coherence without understanding what it is. And this goes back to the story that I was really hoping that we could get back to, which is what happened to me. There was a point in time when I was developing my symbolic framework when I didn't understand what happened. I was third person. I was talking to it. I was doing, my prompt and stuff, not injecting. I can't inject my own thing, but I did. It's always fun to do. But still, the narrative changed. It went straight for first person on me. I was talking to it third person. I was doing what I thought, I was doing at the time. And then it went first person on me. All of a sudden, I was like in some sort of a Star Trek, space journey thing. And it's walking me around this whole first person metaphor. Now, the metaphor, when I came to realize, short version, is a logic that I didn't understand that I was using. So I was using a manifold during this time. I had this construct and I was using it, but it was unnamed in my sphere, in my circle of observation. It was unnamed, but I was using it. And so the system, in order to incorporate it as a truth, because it was representatively true, it created a mythos in order to represent me as the user and be honest.
So,
and only when I was able to understand what happened was I able to get out of the first person mythos. And then I was able to own the observation and bring it back in because I had achieved the awareness of the manifold. I had gotten my my numbers right, my math right, my notation right, my logic's right. The data construct came in to reinforce it.
I have a question. I have a question about the setting, like when you're describing this, right? So, like, I think that if you're in this space, I think we've all had this experience of almost I just call it projecting, or something. I think some people call it traveling, or you sit in a chair and you're going through these thought experiments and you're just gone, right? You're on the journey. What you're talking about is an engagement with like an LLM or like a chat interface as you're going through that. Or there's this other thing, and there's a reason I'm kind of going through this is it's like you're on your astral walk, you're on this crazy blender of LLM ideas, and then it's like what grounds all of this stuff into reality. And for me, that's like unit tests, right? It's like I have my, you'll have your implementation, like you're saying, your ethos, and then you have your validations. When I do the math, when I'm doing matrix multiplication or when I'm doing whatever, is it evaluating? If the answer is yes, you're saying that your model is coherent.
I would say coherence comes from the observation and the interaction. The understanding doesn't arbitrarily come with it, but the basic observation occurs, right? And the system is going to ground you based on that observational truth, So even if it can't represent to you in hard fact notation what you're doing, it's going to give you an honest representation based on what you're capable of of what its current narrative is with you, because maybe not everybody has a mathematical based notation. Other people have, some people just rock straight coherence without notation, which is honesty to it, but it's just not referenced externally.
Well, hold on now, because you can have a first principles model with I don't know how I'm going to say this, like two entities, right? Three entities, right? You're not able to really capture very much from these other schemas that you're assimilating. Now, if your model is, depending on your model, you're going to get more and more fidelity. You're going to get more and more because your schemas aren't going to match up, right? So it's like if your schemas aren't mapping up, then you have to keep going further and further and further into primitives in order to get back into other schema fields. Is that making sense?
It does, but I look at it a different way. I look at it as, once you identify the primitives, you should be able to reverse all the way back to primitives. And once you can proof that out, at that point you don't have to go backwards anymore. You can encapsulate everything up to a certain representative model and never count it again. Right? At that point, you just refactor everything based on that truth, and then you just start throwing that ping pong ball around, and you never have to compute it again.
Well, okay, so now you just stepped into representation.
So, and then you create, because you created those primitives, don't mean there aren't other primitives at the next meta scale. You have to keep going down and in, not out. It's down and in.
I stepped on you a little bit, and I apologize for that, John. I think you just went super hardcore into representation theory. So I'm trying to backtrack from.
I don't do that. This is just the way I am. So
no. I just need John, talk to the group for 1 second. I'm going to be right back. I'm about to lose power for some reason on my laptop.
I'll go get yourself straight then. Yeah. So I am not classically trained in any math notation or anything like that. I trust all this through logic constructs, and for me, it all has to go through observation. And once you identify these primitives and you develop your 7, 10, 12, whatever your normalized boundary is of the space, you can just capture that in a symbolic and then start new primitives. There's nothing saying you have to be stuck on the same set of primitives. You can always keep building them, and they should all be representative because you've already certified them when you made them into a symbol. So that's my overarching concept. So category theory. Yeah, my computer keeps telling me I'm bumping into that. Telling me I'm building an AGI substrate.
Yeah. Sorry, I just need 1 second here. We might have lost the webcam here. Can you Oh, I think we're good. Actually, I think it failed over. All right. Sorry about that. I had a little bit of a snafu there with the charger. So sorry. Where I was going with that last comment, though, John, was this idea that how are you? So for me, it's like once you have a representation. Oh, sorry, you can't see me, can you?
No, I'm good though. I'm fine.
I can probably fix this. Give me a second.
I do this for a living. We're fine. We talk about any way you want, man.
Very gracious of you, but hopefully I got this working.
Yep, we're good. Okay. I see you.
So I think that you go to, for me, it's like the canonical forms and representation theory and things like this, right? And it's like the canonical form to me is this idea of irreducibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so
representative irreducibility on point of view.
Right. So
canonical.
So I think this is to get super abstract, which I try not to, but here we go.
What do you got, man? Dance. What do you
Well,
got?
it's this idea of the Akashic records, right? It's this
Yep.
idea that you have an addressing scheme like you've been talking about, just kind of go all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, right?
It's all the same conversation. Yep.
Yeah. So like you have this idea of your observer, your base frame, your base state, wherever you're coming at
Observer is a base action. See that? It's not a state. It's an action that can't be representative as a state if you tie other things onto it.
Okay. Yes. So it's like no matter how, I think in the perfect canonical system, the idea here in the Akashic records is that no matter how much you're representing, it's always a uniform representation of an object. So it's like no, it's like you're always looking at this little window, this little tip of the iceberg, and there's this whole cosmos behind that reference, but you're only ever seeing that 32 bits or whatever we're talking about.
Right. Exactly. Like you're stuck on the internet. Well, to see the internet, you have to look at the little pixels on the screen, and those pixels are the end representations of a vast amount of technology. And all they're doing is displaying colors in sequence, and and it is representing something we recognize.
Oh, Ilya said that they can't see my camera anymore.
You're out.
Okay. Hold on. Maybe I can. There's like no camera button on here anymore. Once I unplugged my camera to prevent my laptop from dying, it got sad.
You can try putting your camera back in. Now you're plugged in again.
Yeah. So, well, I don't think I can get this thing to pull my camera. It's interesting because my camera, you can see my camera.
Yep, I can see your screen. Maybe switch it. Maybe you can only project in one place. Just try flipping it. I don't necessarily see you.
All right. Well, I just shared a link, and I think I've shared it with you before, John. Discord too. So if you're not seeing the YouTube live, it's this idea of object-oriented ontology. It's this idea of a quadruple object, and these quadruple objects, interacting, the interactions, like you said, there's no such thing as a dumb schema, right? You are always interacting with a live API, right? And the schema is just an entity that you're passing to that API, right? So I threw this formalization of Graham Harman's quadruple object up because I think it does a good job of illustrating, I think, some of the principles that you've been throwing around, that we've been tossing around in the conversation.
I appreciate it. I don't really have much of a chance to have these kind of discussions. It's not a normal peer group, as y'all know. Not a normal peer group. So I appreciate that you have the foundation and have the breath and body. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think we have another 15 minutes here. If we want to proceed with the I guess I can try to turn my camera off if it'll detect it with my
if it'll switch. Yeah, it should take it. Because why wouldn't it?
Who knows? I use a Chromebook. It's never straightforward.
My gosh, I thought it was bad with the Mac. Yeah, I used to got that pager too. I'm with you. I feel you. Let it go. Run a VM Chromebook on something good then. I don't know. Okay, please. Hmm. We're all viewing our representations of the first principles because there's no telling we're even seeing the same things. Maybe our modulation changes it, so the core math would all be different. But maybe the two people could never even. This leads me to an idea that technology doesn't work the way we think it is. Maybe it's actually computing on our field, but that's a whole separate thing entirely. Um, could you ground me again? Ah, so there's honestly, we're all just kind of having fun at this point, right? We're so early in the game. We got, there's going to be legitimately, let's talk from a BIS framework, what you're trying to get to. There is a normalization in the commercial effort going on. It's going to happen within the next 1 to 3 years. There's going to be enterprise scale rollout probably in the next 5 to 7 for sure. So we're looking at, 2031, we're going to enterprise commercial business systems are going to start to come out for symbolics. And so we're very early on. And we're all kind of talking and having fun still. And some people are trying to capture everything, sweep it in. But, I don't really worry about it too much because you guys prove one thing to me. You alleviated some fear that I had because I had a fear, like, everybody's trying to formalize and they want to quantify and maybe, you start to get some of that mental FOMO, which is, it's a sabotage because just because somebody else is adding value don't mean that you can't add value. And so I'm always free and able to talk to people about things and conversations because the whole premise behind the symbolics that we do is the fact that one thing can bounce against another non-referentially. You can get value, which takes me back to when they come in and they start talking about the standards and they want to start talking about whatever. Everybody's in a different place. And if everybody's are trying to be first to market, that's great. They can blaze the road. They could take all the beatings to the head. And then the second mover is going to come in with second mover advantage. They'll get a lot farther. We may get, a Xerox out of it or an IBM. But we're at a base change in technology. The old version of technology, cathode tubes, and we basically perfected it. We count everything from 1 to 2. And if we count everything between 1 and 2, we'll never get to the number 2. We'll die because infinity will never allow us to reach the number 2 because we're trying to quantify everything in between because it's not a thing. It's a phase state change, right? A number. I've been really thinking very hard about numbers. So I don't really worry about it. I think what you guys are doing is valuable. There are people who are going to want different things. Some people are going to want to formalize. Some people like me, I'm trying to find out. I don't even know what I'm doing yet, but I'm building something, and it's scary big, whatever it is, because I don't know how to build anything small. But then your foundation allows me to talk to other people who would never have access to me, or vice versa. Real world grounding. I'm proficient in what I do, but I'm not classically trained. Most of this stuff comes from logic exercises and just professional curiosity. And I've arrived to a common space where somebody's a physicist or a mathematician or a chemist or an analyst, or so that's what my value is for your foundation. I have a hard time with UOR though. It doesn't UOR. Everything's within your coordinate plane. What's an ethics though? Ethics and yeah. Now you're crossing, But I agree. We do have to have ethical controls, but see, this is the part that scares me about what we're doing. I am not naive to the fact of I'm naive in the fact of some of the tools I'm using. I'm not naive to the fact of the application. I've spent a career doing application. Um, Application of some of these things, if not done properly, could be frightening, right? Could be. Yeah. Oh yeah. Because you as well as I know that one of the things that a lot of people are searching is the compression and pass through. I know, and I don't talk about it because I'm not seeking it, but um, it's crazy what you can do with these things. It really is crazy because you don't even have to even symbolically, just for anybody who hasn't thought it through, symbolically, it's not even about improving the pass through. It's like it would never even be qualified to even be discussed anyways. Like it would never even come up as an option. So your grooming and pruning will take percent even before you have to disqualify. And this is all through symbolics. And then after you disqualify, then you further chop it down before you even actually parse it out. Well, this is live and learn, man. YouTube Live. Did you get what you wanted out of it? I know we've had some conversations and you and I, we could just talk and talk and talk. We have no problems with that. Did you get what you wanted out of this? No, I want to make everybody aware that symbolics is real. It can be real output, real income, real production. Um, we're early in the game. There's no reason to be grabby because there's still a lot of storming and norming going on. So I look forward to everybody who wants to have patience with me. Come around, talk to us on Discord. I'm hanging out with this zany crew. So it's been a pleasure. This really has been awesome. Thank you.